Raise the vibration.
What would you say people can do to like be more conscious consumers?
Right. As far as consumerism goes, people aren't going to stop buying clothes and people aren't going to stop buying new clothes because when you
Yeah.
find a pair of jeans or a dress that fits you amazing, you feel great. So I'll talk about how I've changed my habits personally and then
Yeah.
share some resources that make it easier than ever. That was as I've learned more about the industry, as I've had my own frustrations as a shopper or consumer. Basically, I was in Cambodia for a year and I didn't come back for a full year, and I came back to the US. And I think my biggest frustration in that sort of reverse culture shock or processing moments was that we have, and I will share these resources, right? We have more resources and money than ever to be able to invest in better choices, better buying choices, whether it's your clothes or your coffee. Okay, there's no excuse to not at least know what the better option is.
Yeah,
right?
that's so true.
You have to do a little research, right, as to what is an ethical brand and where can I buy it and can I afford it. Well, I think it takes a real self-reflection and and thinking about where am I spending my money? How do I want to invest in, the people who are touching all of my consumer goods? And thankfully, I do really enjoy thrifting, and that's been a part of how I built my wardrobe, especially in college in Ohio. There are a lot of great thrift stores. So let's say thrift stores, but also great sites such as ThredUp, Poshmark, and Depop. There's two of those are apps, Poshmark and Depop. So I really have been wanting like a button-up boiler suit, short sleeve jumpsuit for a while. So yeah, when things start opening back up, I'm gonna look up a boiler suit on ThredUp and hope I can find something.
Oh, cool.
On ThredUp, you can shop by brand, you can type in a style, blah blah blah, right? Because season to season, we all have a new style we're trying to add to our wardrobe. So that's what I'm looking forward to see if I can find it. And you don't have to scroll through pages of pages. You can put your size, you can put in a brand and find what you want. Let's see. So yeah, I would recommend those 3 sites for brands that hopefully even you might know your size in them. You can seek the secondhand option. So fashion retail as it is doing so poorly that they're giving ThredUp space on their retail floor that customers they're not reaching can come. Customers who are seeking the secondhand option will come into. I don't know if I'm getting the stores wrong, so that might need to be corrected. But let's say Kohl's or whatever, they're coming into Kohl's to get the ThredUp, and Kohl's is hoping just to improve the foot traffic that they're giving, and I think JCPenney for sure, that they're giving these secondhand online retailers space on their sales floor so that they get more foot traffic in.
Wow.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, that's developed in like the past year and a half. And as I watch it from afar at this point, I'm just like, I'm really glad I'm not in that space anymore. If our biggest like big box department stores are giving on secondhand stores space in their big box stores. Anyway, so maybe that exists, near you guys, but at least check those sites out. Okay, so we've talked secondhand, vintage, online options for secondhand and vintage. And then as far as ethical and sustainable options, there's the 2 best resources I know come out of Australia. So that's a little bit of a challenge because they don't have all of our American retailers on them, but they do have most international brands on them. And international retailers on them. So one of those is called Good On You, which is an app. So it's out of Australia. Yeah, so you can look up any international brand, whether it's like activewear and sport or H&M or whatever, and they've through an intensive sort of auditing and reporting process of their own development, I think they rate all of these brands basically A through D, like a grade school report. So if you're at the mall, and nobody goes to malls anymore, right? If you're at the mall, if you're shopping online,
if you're hanging out with your friends at the mall.
Yeah. If you're post-quarantine, hop into your local mall, sip in some Annie Ann's lemonade. You can.
I went to so many malls in Bangkok when we were in Asia. Like their
Yeah.
malls are
Nothing compares.
ridiculous.
Nothing compares. There's an organization called Baptist World Aid that releases an ethical fashion report every year, which is kind of a similar report card, but a little more intensive into some of the issues. So if you're interested in learning more about the more nuanced environmental and social impact issues of what they are and how brands are trying to improve them, it's kind of like a big PDF, but it is really interesting. And
Cool.
you can get a better idea of the global fashion supply chain. And again, these two resources cover like hundreds of brands that most people, are wearing or shopping. So makes it easy. If you're really, adding some ethical or sustainable fashion to your closet, I would just do a quick search of like online ethical fashion boutique, and there are dozens in the US who are stockists for, like I said, dozens of ethical brands. So that's your best bet.
This is something I say on my channel a lot. I consider myself a minimalist. Like I don't own a lot of clothes or like buy a lot of clothes. But I definitely I realize the clothes that I own are just like these big brands that are probably not doing anything like consciously, ethically, like I don't, whatever.
Everybody has to be doing something at this point, but
different to a
they're
different
not
extent.
transparent. Yeah, they're not. If they're not if you don't know that they're doing something, it's because they're not transparent about it, and if they're not transparent about it, it's because they have something to hide.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
All of that to say, if we're using the word sustainability, the most sustainable thing to do is not to buy anything. If we're talking
yes!
if we're in the vein of consumerism and minimalism, and so that's also why I'm glad that argument is sort of again diffusing this brand versus consumer argument, because me buying more sustainable stuff is still me buying stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's been part of the conversation more and more of like, you know what? The most sustainable and environmentally friendly option is actually not to go out in my car that uses gas to buy more stuff that was packed in plastic and farmed and watered to create.
Yeah, exactly. I think we could all buy so much less. My last YouTube video was how to be happy with less, and it's all about like reducing, and I just think it's all just profit. Like it's all the marketing, the ads, everything we see around us, our society, like everything is just shoving in our faces the fact that we need to be like constantly buying things. But it's like we don't even need to constantly be buying. It actually makes no sense to constantly be buying clothes, because I mean, unless you really care about like fashion and how it looks, which I understand that, but for strictly, if you don't care about that stuff, then like there's literally no reason to just like keep buying. It's not like my clothes aren't falling apart. If they are, then like you should probably shop somewhere better. And
you should
invest
living
in something.
in Africa, in Asia, help kind of diffuse your consumerist mentality?
Yeah, definitely. Like
for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been like I've never been really into like fashion. I've never cared that much like what I wear. It's just I wish I cared. Like I wish I could like look better, but like I just it's never been an interest of mine. And like I mean, living in Senegal and West Africa, East Africa, you just see like people can get by with so much less than what we're used to. And I'm not saying it's like better because they also struggle with other things, but you do come back to the US and you're like, wow, we have so much more than we need. And like it's not even helping us by having more. It actually this is what my last video was about. It gives us more decisions to make. It makes us more stressed. We own more things. We're spending more money, which leads to more debt. And it's all because our society is telling us like we need to be buying more things. But so that's my little rant about
no, and to go off of that, before you look for these ethical shopping options, before you look at secondhand sites, I have 2 tips. And that is, one, we all know the sort of Marie Kondo thing. So look at your closet. And so like we talked about, there's a psychology of fashion and appearance, aesthetics. Take a look at what you own, and whatever does it spark joy, take that as you will. But like, think of the last time you wore it. How did you
Just
feel?
think if you're gonna wear it again.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I always say. I'm like, I don't know what sparks joy. I just know what I'm gonna wear again and what I'm gonna think I'll wear in the future at like a party in the summer that I never end up going to.
That's true. It's like we have our aspirational side of our closet, and then everything else we actually wear. So yeah, take a look at what's there. Think about, if you haven't worn it in a year, this is a pretty good benchmark. If you haven't worn it in a year, you're not going to wear it again. Donate it. Sure, and then another tip I learned from a friend recently is hang all of the clothing that you are holding onto. Hang it all backwards, and then flip the hanger around when you wear it. And then look at it in a month and see what you've actually worn.
That is smart.
Yeah. So those are my hot tips. Hot takes from Jazz.
I like it. I love that. I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah,
like,
think about
flip it.
how you feel when you wear things. And if it doesn't feel good, get rid of it. Hang everything backwards over the span of a month, 2 months, a quarter of a year, whatever you want. Check again and say, okay, because the average is that most of us only wear 20 to 30% of the clothes we own in our closet.
Wow. Yeah.
As an average stat. So
although when I was in Laos, I was wearing 100%
all 5 shirts.
All 5, literally. But I made a video about it. I was like, this is so nice because I have no decisions to make. I know exactly what I'm gonna wear. I don't have to complicate anything. It's just like so easy.
And like you said, some people enjoy that better than others. So
yeah, exactly.
Wherever you are in that spectrum, these tips can help you out. And like I said, those shopping tools should be able to help you make better choices. So all of that to say, although I don't love the consumer versus brand sort of argument like I talked about, consumer pressure and social activism movements have forced the industry to become more transparent because collectively, right, if we're not spending our dollars on $1 t-shirts, it has made an impact. Brands have seen that pop up. So yeah, whether you're shopping once a year or once a month, the collective action does make an impact. And 2 sort of social movements, one that I've been involved in is Fashion Revolution. So that's a global movement with headquarters in UK that pushes for greater transparency in the industry. So you can look that up if you're interested in learning about what they do. And basically, they've been established as a social activism movement since a major garment factory in Bangladesh 7 years ago. And with every year from the 7 years since they've been established, we've seen the industry change, and I've seen the needle move, not fast enough in my opinion, but it is moving. I think a lot of people know of Extinction Rebellion, which is more environmentally based, but they have an entire fashion boycott movement where they had a ton of people commit to not buying any new clothes for an entire year. Wow. So that's pretty cool. And, they do these protests outside of London Fashion Week to say that this is dumb. Fashion is killing the planet.
I love it.
New clothes. So they do some really cool stuff. So people can look that up if they're interested to see what does this greater sort of social movement look like at large.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah,
I think I watched the documentary The True Cost on Netflix, which was
good fun. Yeah, that documentary is a good entry point. And technically, we're kind of not allowed to show it in Cambodia because it features some scenes from wage riot protests from a handful of years ago. But still,
oh, wow.
Yeah, maybe 2014, there were major minimum wage riots in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, where I just came from living. So it's still a very present issue, and that's a good starting point. That documentary is a good starting point for people who really want to learn more.
Well, that was a great conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Chat about these issues we care about.
Thank you. Yes.